Good evening, everyone. Sorry for being 5 minutes late. Hope you are doing well, everyone. Is Dulu Bhai with us? Wafiq Bhai?
Yes.
Okay.
Dulu Bhai is with us.
Hello, Dulu Bhai. Yeah. How are you,
Yes.
Dulu Bhai?
Yes, fine. I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm fine. So it's
Okay.
interesting that we have people from different professions and from regions today. I think we have Rania with us from USA, who is the co-founder of Architecture for Refugees USA, and Bense Kamlosi.
Yeah.
Oh, she's still not here?
No,
Okay.
she might join. I don't know if she. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know others. Others can introduce themselves. Bense, I know Bense Kamlosi from Switzerland. He is the co-founder of Architecture for Refugees, and Wafiq Bhai is the deputy director of CODEC, a local organization, non-governmental organization here. He has been working with CODEC for since 2011, as far as I know. And Dulu Bhai has been Dulu Bhai is an artist, and he works with Wafiq Bhai in the same projects or similar projects in CODEC, and collaborates in creating so much dramatic environments and beautiful paintings and beautiful lively environments or architecture. So I think many of you have seen so far, or I don't know if you have followed Wafiq Bhai and Dulu Bhai's work. So today we're mainly gonna focus on how Wafiq Bhai and his team works in the field and has been working. But before that, if Bense could introduce other guests to us so that we can know each other.
Yeah, so now we are seven people here, and I can only introduce Susanna Sauter. She's also a very important member in our Swiss chapter. She joined, I think, 2 years ago maybe, and she's now kind of moderating for sure all the monthly meetings, but she also do many things, organizing events and bringing people really together, keeping the community together. And so she's really an important backbone, I would say, for the current developments. And I don't know, maybe you want to say something else, Susanna? She's also an architect, so she works also as an architect in her proper, in her main, we say it bread job here.
No, I don't have to say a lot. Thank you for the charming introduction, Ben. No, I'm originally from Germany and living since 9 years in Switzerland. And I didn't have too much information about this Bangladesh connection. Benze told us many times, and today I finally found the time to join for a meeting, so I'm very curious. So I will have just some facts about you guys, so I'm just happy to listen and learn more about what you're doing. Yeah.
Welcome, Susan.
Okay.
I think
Tabarak and Shegufa, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
Shegufa Apu, আপনি কি শুনতে পাচ্ছেন আমাদেরকে?
হ্যাঁ, শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
So we have Shegufa Apu. So you can introduce yourself to us. I'll not bother.
I'm also as well working in Rohingya refugee response here, like Rizvi and Wafiq. But I'm working in the spatial planning level, and also it's mostly to develop the long-term vision or long-term planning for the refugee camp, and also the transition from the humanitarian response to the development response. So that's my kind of current working situation. Yeah, I'm very much happy to join today and also listen to the works. And I have had listened to Wafiq's presentation a little bit before, but I'm very interested to hear in more detail today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shekhar. And who else do we have?
Tabarak bhai, please you to introduce you. I think you have already introduced yourself, but please good and again. So yeah, Tawarak bhai, yeah.
Okay, thank you giving me the floor to introduce again with you. This is Tabarak Hussain, working with CODEC as a project coordinator in child protection project. So I am working with refugee context for last 4 years, and thank you, Wafiq bhai, to invite me in this forum. Thank you.
And Dulu bhai, just I am Tasaddaq Hussain Dulu. Now I am working in CODEC for the last 23 years. Basically, I am artist. Now I am working in CODEC education cell. And Wafiq and me, and together or jointly, art and architecture,
Okay.
work in refugee camps. Okay.
Okay. Welcome, Dulu bhai.
Okay. Thank
Okay, I think most of I know 5 of the participants know me, but I'll introduce myself shortly for Suzanne and Shahadat Bhai. I'm Rizvi Hassan, and I have been working in this refugee context, in Rohingya refugee context for 2 years now. I have started working here in 2018 September with BRAC, a non-governmental organization. Now I am working with IOM, UN organization, for some cultural preservation or cultural conservation projects under mental health department. So yeah, hopefully we can share our works further. This is just the first meeting of Architecture for Refugees Bangladesh, and I'm glad that people from other regions are also joining here. So I would like to request Wafiq Bhai to start his presentation, or to show us some of his works, or how he has been actually introduced to this context, or how he has been become familiar to this context, or got his chance to work. So many things to learn, and if anyone has any questions, they can ask, or any comments, they can instantly ask, and we can discuss. The main we can do it all casually, no need to be super serious. So if anyone wants to know instantly anything, they can. I think it's an open discussion. So okay, Wafiq bhai.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm sharing my screen. I think you can see. So yeah, is my screen is shared with everybody? Everybody can see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, okay, fine. So actually, like, welcome again to everyone. So like, I'm Wafiq. I introduced myself before. I'm an architect, and working in with CODEC for the last, from actually directly from for the last years, and indirectly from 2010. So yeah, I think Rizvi and Shagufta, they have already seen this presentation before. So I'll try not to be boring again. I'll try to bear with me. So, yeah. So, but in the first meeting, I think the theme for today is creating spaces for children, and that is the thing that we as a part of a CODEC team are doing in the Rohingya refugee context. So maybe today I will only focus on those projects that we are doing with the children, and also many people are connecting now. I'm also connecting them. So okay, so first just to give a idea about Community Development Center, CODEC, the organization that I work for. The CODEC was established in 1985, and for the last 35 years, CODEC is working in the coastal areas of Bangladesh. So you know, maybe many people, that Bangladesh has a huge coastline, and the focus of our organization, our NGO, is only working in the coastal areas. So CODEC have started from 1985. Firstly, CODEC worked only with the fisherfolk communities, mostly fishermen. But with the graduation of time, CODEC also is now working with other disadvantaged communities in the coastal areas of Bangladesh. So at present, CODEC is working in all of the 3 coastal divisions of Bangladesh, and almost 5,000 people is working along with me, CODEC. And we have many kinds of program to support the coastal disadvantaged coastal populations. We have education program, protection program, access to finance program. Also, we have some health and nutrition programs too. And one of the major programs that we do is the climate change adaptation, because Bangladesh is a country mostly hugely affected by climate change, and in our lifetime we are actually seeing the changes in our coastal area. So yeah, that's just a short idea about the organization that I work for. So as Bangladesh is working in the coastal area, and in the Rohingya refugee crisis is also in the coastal part of Bangladesh. So we were one of the first responders in this crisis. So the Rohingya refugee crisis, many of us actually know about it. I think most of us know the recent influx in 2017, where more than 700,000 Rohingya refugees fled from Myanmar. But actually, this Rohingya refugee crisis, started long before 2017. I think from the 80s, there were people coming from Myanmar to Bangladesh, and before 2017, there was almost 300,000 Rohingya refugees already living in Bangladesh. So I started to work with this Rohingya community from 2010, and we did our first projects during that period. And gradually, I saw that this problem actually increased in Myanmar, and it resulted in actually in 2017 uh, influx. And in that time, many people, 700,000 people, moved into Bangladesh fearing for their lives. And actually, United Nations has described this as a genocidal violence, and that follows decades of persecution and human rights abuse. And now almost 1.1 million stateless Rohingya refugee lives in one of the world's largest and most densely populated refugee camps. And among these huge Rohingya population, there is the 55% of them are children. So in the Rohingya, and it is very disheartening to see that in any kind of conflict, actually, the amount of children and women are being affected is huge. And many children, when they were fleeing Myanmar, they actually lost family members or their siblings, and they were in huge psychological distress when they were coming into Bangladesh, and still are now. And in these refugee camps, from the start, there were no, even not the basic infrastructure and the supporting systems to support children. But over the period of time, many systems and infrastructures are now developed. And in the camp areas, mostly CODEC is working with the support and funding of UNHCR, UNICEF, and World Food Program. At this moment, we have education program, protection program, and school feeding program in the refugee camps. And almost 235,000 children are now covered in our programs, the Rohingya refugee camp. So the architectural projects that I'm going to focus on now, it started, as I said, that I was involved with CODEC from 2010. So the first project that I did was in 2010. It was a child-friendly space in the host community. And there's just a brief timeline that I'm going to show here. And then in 2017, I also did the first phase of child-friendly space in the camps and learning centers, phase 1 in the camps. And after, in 2019, we did the child-friendly spaces phase 2, and also learning center phase 2 in 2020. So yeah, like I'm also working, I'm not working alone, I'm working with a huge team with me. So you can see that like we have Dulu Bhai, who is present with us, and also Tawarak Hussain, who is present with us, two of my team members, our team members today in this meeting. And also there's lots of engineers and mostly also community people who are actually part of our design and construction team. So first, just as we did the child-friendly space project first, so I'm going to focus on it. So child-friendly space, this concept was established or widely used by UNICEF during the 1990s. 99 actually, to actually this concept was to ensure child rights to survival, development, participation, protection, and especially at the times of crisis or instability. The focus was to create a platform for children where they can be children again. They can feel safe, and they will have the access to development and participation. And mainly functions of this main function of the CFS is PSS is like psychosocial support, case management services, and community engagement. And like each CFS is actually built with the idea that children will come here, feel feel safe, and if the children need some kind of protection services, they will also get that protection services here. And community-based child protection mechanisms will be functional from these child-friendly spaces, and yeah, children, to ensure the protection of children in the refugee camps. So in 2010, when we started the first designed and constructed the first CFS in the host community, at that time there was two huge like refugee camps, which we call the registered refugee camps in Bangladesh, and 300,000 Rohingya refugees were still living. But a part of the Rohingya children actually were outside the camps, and they and their families were mixed with the host communities around the camp. So the first CFS was built on the idea to actually create this space for both Rohingya children and host community children, this safe spaces. And it was mainly focused on dropout and out of school children, and built near primary and high schools, so that in the primary schools at that time, and also even now, the regular attendance of children is not that, actually very poor. So to increase the attendance in the primary school, this kind of CFS were built around the primary schools. So where children can come and play and also learn, and they will also be interested to go to school again, and their parents will also be encouraged to send their children to school. So that was the first intention of building CFS in the host communities. So we in that part, we actually renovated 3 existing primary schools to support the CFS program, and that the renovation budget was really small. So we did some structural improvements, but mostly we worked with wall arts, and we saw that instantly the inclusion of art into learning environments actually changed the perception of children coming to school, and their level of enjoyment was also increased as they were also involved in this process of art. Also, we built 2 CFS in the host community in that period. So that was the very, in that time I was just graduating from architecture, like my bachelor studies, and this is like the primary works that I did. After that, in 2017, the phase 1 CFS we started to construct, and this CFS is actually created after the influx in 2017, where suddenly we needed a huge amount of protected spaces for children. And we are, as a partner working in the camp areas, we were also provided with the task to create very quickly this kind of spaces where children can come. They will have the access and they can spend some time, and also they will be included in the protection program. So that first primary design or establishment were very basic. It was mostly focused to create an space where like many children can come from different directions, and to ensure lots of natural light and access and ventilation in the space, so that they can enjoy the time they are spending there. So we had to construct 25 number of this CFS in only 2 months or 3 months, I think, in the first phase. And we did that, and it created a huge, I think, change in the camp environment, because in a very densely populated area, and in that time very unplanned area, where there was this colorful structures which was a bit lofty. There was spaces inside for children to come, and they actually, the children, responded to this. They because nobody at that period, their living conditions were very, very poor. Yeah, they were confined with very small spaces with very, very big family sizes. So when they found these spaces, just a open space, and where they had access to toys or some learning materials, they enjoyed and they grasped this opportunity, and children started to come in our CFS. And along with the CFS program, also in 2017, there was this need of establishing learning centers, because as you know, like, education is a basic right for every children. So to provide spaces where they can do their learning was also very important. And this was also a way to create a sense of normalcy. And so for the children, they can look to the future or look forward to something. And these learning centers were focused to provide early education for children aged to 4 to 6, and as well as non-formal basic education from children aging to 6 to 14. So children also received like psychological counseling, and they were taught about many hygiene practices in the learning center. So that the picture that I've shown here, it was when I started to work again for CODEC in 2017, when I first went to the camp areas. This was the already provided design for learning center, and some of them were already constructed. And instantly I saw that this was in a way some kind of relief. You know, any kind of disaster or this kind of humanitarian context, there is a relief mentality to build something as quickly as possible, and just not bringing everybody into the design. And this is a result of that. And in this structure, when we went there and we talked with the students and the teachers, there were already overheating concerns, and it was not interesting enough for the children. And in that time, children were also very afraid of going away from the whatever family they were left with. So these kind of structures were very uninteresting for the children, and there was no involvement of the community too in the design and construction process of these learning centers. And immediately there was some kind of any social problems that were faced, because even when the Rohingya people were staying in Myanmar, many of them were not going to school, but they were going to many, which is a kind of religious schools, which is called Moktop in Bengali. In these religious schools, they were actually taught Arabic and about the Quran. So that when also they came into Bangladesh, there was this religious schools which was already established by the community. So the community were thinking that these kind of learning centers are not important, and the religious schools is also it's like already enough for them. So that we, at the start of the design and establishment of learning centers, we did lots of community mobilization and like lots of meetings with the community about the design and also the purpose of learning center. And we tried to convey the message that this why learning and education is important for the children, even in the refugee context, or even in this very hardship that they're facing. And when like with continuous discussions and mobilizations in the community, gradually the people started to respond to the need to learning centers and send their children to learning centers. And also they provided critical inputs in the how they want their learning environment for the children. And also we involved the religious leaders of the camps. So they were also, when they were engaged in the discussion, they gave their consent that okay, that the children can also go to the learning centers and learn English, math, life skill things, and they can also come to our religious school afterwards. So there was like a balance in the community at that point. So, but there is also the huge amount of pressure that we are facing from many, like from our funders, that we have to establish huge amount of learning centers in a very quick time. So there is always this thing which is coverage versus quality, this contradiction, you can say. And we tried to address that by establishing very temporary sheds to grasp the space, because in the camp situation in Bangladesh, space is also very critical. So we at first phase we just built these temporary sheds as learning centers and tried to convince all the stakeholders that in this space in the future learning centers will also be built, and just to try to uh, take all the children around the learning center and try to develop their habit to come to school or learning environment. So that was the first step that we did, and that actually this process worked because it helped us to uh, stabilize both all of the stakeholders and try to develop the design and try to take more time to develop the design and construction of the learning center. So gradually we developed this design of learning center, which were focus were given to the optimum use of local materials and like the critical inputs that we get from the community. In a way, when we were talking with children and the parents, they somehow they reflect back to their homes that they actually left during this conflict. So and we tried to understand what kind of materials or what kind of spaces they used in their homes when they were staying in Myanmar, and we saw this kind of uses of bamboo-based materials and climatic comfort, like passive climatic comfort things, and also the use of semi-outdoor spaces, which is common in Bangladesh too. So we introduced this semi-outdoor spaces and indoor space to ensure the transition from outside to inside, and also the use of instead of CGI sheet or metal sheets, we use this sungrass as a roofing material, which is actually a grass. So when used in a proper way, it gives more climatic comfort. And during the uh, like natural disasters or cyclones, the roof doesn't provide any strong solid surfaces, so it is more, I think, more resilient during the cyclone period. And also during the process of design, we did lots of field testing. We tried many kinds of joining, and then in that part, we involved the people of the community who were also part of the construction process to involve themselves and try to learn from each other what kind of joints work and with what kind of structural members and joinings they also prefer, how they want to build their roofs, how they want to make their columns and beams. So it was like the approach was totally community centric, and we tried to share the knowledge from the people who already came here, and also the people from Bangladesh or the host community people were involved in the process. And then also we wanted to make, as this is a very disaster prone area, we wanted to make it as resilient as possible, and like many kind of resilient uh, interventions were put in the design, like introducing of cross bracings and also making the foundations in such a way so the structures can be removed if needed or reestablished in anywhere. And if a structural member is damaged, we can easily replace the structural member, and to make it simple. And this is some pictures of the final construction phases, and you can see in the picture that already the children, as they were involved in the design process, they were getting interested about their school, and they were trying to see what is going on inside. So that gave us a notion that this might work in the future. And we also made it very colorful and with warm colors so that children feel more comfortable in these spaces. And we actually at the end of the day, we built 675 learning centers in the camp areas, almost covering almost every camp in where we provide our educational service. And more than 75,000 children are now using these learning centers, which is you can see in these pictures, which has ample light and ventilation, built in a very simple way, so that it takes less resources and less time to build, but ensure the basic living and learning environment for the children. And the introduction of the semi-outdoor space and make it as a home actually provided much of a very comfortable space for the children, and they enjoy coming and learning. So in some places there is like this kind of learning centers which are built all in a way like same way, and it feels different when you walk through these kind of spaces. You feel that these are learning spaces where children come and enjoy their time. Okay. This is like the CFS in phase 2, child-friendly space. We built it around 2019, and in that time, the notion or the purpose of child-friendly spaces were also changing, because at that time, all of the stakeholders and even the policymakers were trying to involve adolescent and teenagers in the child-friendly space system. So, and also the integration of community or many kind of community functions were introduced in the child-friendly spaces. So the existing phase 1 simple structure were not providing enough spaces to do that. So we built this phase 2 around 2019, where actually like we tried to accommodate all the requirements that is there, and also try to create a space where like these feelings and desire coming evolving into the forms. So we were working with that notion too. Here, like you can see also the motivation or the aspirations of the design came from block toys, which were already introduced in the CFS, and there was this triangular shape like toys, and we all wanted to make our form like that. So it somehow represented the block toys and the playing environment that the children already are in CFS. And in the plan, you can see that there is, along with the CFS activities, there is also the spaces for adolescents and also vocational spaces, so that teenagers and adolescents can be involved in the process. And all of these spaces had actually the partitioning were done in a way so that they can be removed, and these spaces can be open for community functions. So this is actually the first CFS was very small structure, but the second phase CFS is around 2,600 square feet. So it's a bigger structure. These are some pictures during construction. Also during this art process, the children and the community people were really much involved with the art. Our artist, Mr. Dulu, he actually took the community and the children and tried to incorporate them as much as possible with the process. So the belongingness is created with the structure, and it actually worked very well. You can see during the construction and artwork going. Also, it created these spaces which we always wanted to create, where it's kind of in a very dense condition. It's just a release or a way of a bit of open and colorful space where people psychologically can also be a bit more free and just speak about their ongoing lives. There's some pictures of the interiors. You can see that there is this training room where there is the sewing machines where adults and girls learn sewing, and also there is the children are already an integral part of the CFS, so they're already also there. And the adolescents are also involved in this kind of, we call it karchupi in Bengali. It's just a very decorative cloth which they make them and they can sell it in the market, or they can use them by themselves. So these kind of programs also started in the CFS context. And also like this kind of huge community gatherings were done in the CFS, which was not possible before in the previous structure. So the new structure enables the community to come inside the structure and have these meetings with partners and other stakeholders involved in the whole development work. And so, and this is the last project that we did, started in 2019, and we finished construction in 2020. Learning center, but we're calling it phase 2. As like we built, along with other partners, we built lots of single-story learning centers in the camp, but still many children actually are still now out of education program. So there were need for more learning spaces, but the present context of the camp is so densely populated. So on the only way in some cases were to go upwards and go vertically up. So we introduced these 2-story learning centers in the camp area. And the structure is steel-based structure, but we didn't use I sections. Now, instead of I sections, we used this hollow steel sections, because everywhere we actually we have to construct the materials. It has to be carried by the people themselves. There is no like roads or trucks or something which can take these materials to the site. So we thought that I sections is actually quite heavy in a way. So to make it more lighter and easy to transport in our sites, we use these hollow steel sections and make the structural design in a way can accommodate this. We can make the whole structure with these hollow steel sections and make it very light. And during the construction, there were also many when these were in this stage. Once the army came, Bangladesh army came, and then they stopped the construction because they thought that this is some kind of industry that we are building in the camps. But then we tried to, and we were able to make them understand that this is not industries. This is like two-story learning centers that we're trying to. And from the start, I wanted to have this contrast of very strong bone and very soft skin. So the inside of the structure is very strong and resilient, but the outside of the structure is very soft, like a skin. And the artwork was also done. The structure. This is the picture of the staircase, and like the use of bamboo were made in a way so the light comes naturally inside the staircase. And this is like the final, some pictures of the building being constructed in 2020. And also here, Dulu Bhai did this amazing artworks with the community and children, which make it more interesting for the children. There's some pictures of the interiors you can see already. Now that all classes are closed due to COVID-19, but before that, the classes were started, and with lots of light and air, students were really enjoying this learning environment. Just when before the schools were closed, this picture were taken. Actually, I love this picture because I think somehow the art and the children became one with the structure. So yeah, I want to end by this line that I really love. People ignores design that ignores people. So like I think I just showed some of our works, but hopefully in future Rizvi and Fatmi and others, they will also share their works. And they are also doing, I think, much more great works than us, because they are the next generation who went to the camps and doing beautiful work. So thank you for listening to my very rusty English for a long period of time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Wafiq Bhai. It is true, I have followed your presentation before, but I think previously I was nervous because my presentation was after yours, and I had to concentrate on mine. But I found it more interesting today. I could relax and hear your stories today, and I find it really interesting and lovely, and a lot of things to learn from. So I think Fatmi is with us. Fatmi, hello. Can you hear us? Hello. Okay. Okay. Hello. Acha.
Also, Michiko joined later. Michiko is also a member of us. Yes. She's a tutor. Is a Michiko.
Hello. It appears.
Hello, Michiko. Nice to meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you too.
Yeah, it would be great if you could introduce a bit to yourself to us, and
all right. Okay.
What you do.
Okay. I live in Zurich. I'm also an architect, and I just joined the Architecture for Refugees in Switzerland lately. So I haven't really react yet in this group, but I try to participate as much as I can. So
okay, yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Step by step. It goes step by step. No, it's always. I think it's a process of joining. First, just always people are just observing what's going on around us, and then in a few weeks or few months, they start doing the first joining for events, and then step by step they get to know how we work, what we do, and then they start also participating, joining for projects.
Yeah. Okay, so next I would like to ask Dulu Bhai to share something with us, some of his stories, as he has been a major part of these projects Wafiq Bhai has showed us. So I think I really would like to know what goes on Dulu Bhai's mind when he does these amazing artworks or these creates this essence, and where does he find it, and where does it come from with these artworks for the children and for the community. Dulu Bhai, could you share some of your ideas or thoughts? Hello.
Okay. Thank you, Rizvi. Just I have request one. Just I can use Bangla. Someone can help me, please.
Yes,
Rizvi.
please. Yes.
Okay.
It's all right. It's okay. I can translate for
Once here is problem. Okay. Thank you. রিজভি, তাহলে একটা লাইন করে বলার পরে তারপরে একটু বলে দিতে হবে, নাকি আমি গল্পটা বলার পরে বললে ভালো, কোনটা প্লিজ?
I think Dulu Bhai, apni you can share a few lines or few stories, and I can translate it instead of like one line or.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. প্রথম হলো নিশিত যখন কাজটা করতে গিয়ে মানে কাজটা করতে যায়, সেটা 2000 বললো যে 2010 সালের একটা গল্প বললো, বাট এরপরে যখন সেকেন্ড পেজ বা থার্ড পেজে যেটা করলো, ও যখনই ড্রয়িং গুলো করতো তখন একটা শেয়ার করতো যে দুলু ভাই কি করা যায়, একটা ভাবনা কি প্রথম করা যায়। প্রচুর সে ড্রয়িং করতো, কারণ আমরা দুজনে খুব পাশাপাশি বসে যে প্রচুর গল্প হতো, এভাবে করলে কি হয়, এভাবে করলে কি হয়। কারণ ইনফ্লাক্সে তখন একটা বড় একটা প্রেশার আমাদের দিকে চলে আসলো যে ইনস্ট্যান্ট অনেকগুলো জিনিস করার জন্য। তারপর ধীরে ধীরে তো আজকে যে থার্ড স্টেপে এসে যে 2 স্টোরের যে বিল্ডিং গুলো আছে, তাই এটা নিয়ে কিন্তু মানে প্রথম একটা আলোচনা করা, ড্রয়িং গুলো করা বা কি হতে পারে, তারপরে পার্টিসিপেশনটা কি হবে। যখন আমরা এটা নিয়ে মাঠে যাই, নিশ্চয়ই তার প্রেজেন্টেশনও দেখালো যে কমিউনিটির সাথে কথা বলে যে কমিউনিটি ইনভলভমেন্টটা সবচেয়ে এখানে বেশি ছিল। আর আমিও যখন কাজটা করতে যাই, ডেফিনেটলি যেহেতু মানে নিশিত যেহেতু আর্কিটেক্ট, তারও একটা পছন্দের একটা বিষয় আছে, সেটা কালার হোক বা কি হতে পারে, কারণ তার জায়গায় তো আমাকে রংটা করতে হবে, তাই না। ধরে নিয়ে যে তার বাড়ি আমাকে রং করতে বললো যে দুলু ভাই দেখেন আমার রংটা আমি এরকম চাচ্ছি, সেই জিনিসটা যখন সে মাথায় দিল, তখন আমরা আবার এটা মাঠে গিয়ে যে শিশু যারা আছে, যারা ওখানে পড়ে, যারা আমাদের সেন্টারগুলোতে যারা আসে, অথবা অভিভাবক যারা আছে, তাদের সাথে একটা আলোচনা হতো যে তারা কি চাচ্ছে, তাদের কোন কালারটা তাদের পছন্দ। আর একটা জিনিস রিজভি, যে আমরা যখন ছবি আঁকতে যাই, শিশুদের অবশ্যই তাদের একটা অংশগ্রহণ ছিল তাদের আঁকার সাথে, যে তাদের যেমন তাদের যে ইয়েতে যেটা আছে কি বলবো এটাকে, তাদের যে বর্ণমালা গুলো আছে, যে স্যার এখানে বর্ণমালা হতে পারে, স্যার আঁকতে পারেন। আমরা যখন আঁকার পরে দেখা গেল কি ওরা পড়তে শুরু করলো, এটাও বেশ ভালো একটা জিনিস। এবং আরেকটা জিনিস ছিল, যেহেতু ওরা একটু কনজারভেটিভ ফ্যামিলি এবং কঠিন মুসলমান যদি বলি আমি, যেটা আমরা যখন ছবি আঁকতে গেছি, এখানে কোনো ফিগার আঁকানো যাইবো, মানে ফিগার কোনো ফিগার আঁকা যাবে না, সেটা পাখি হোক, সেটা মানুষ হোক, সেটা কোনো প্রাণীর অবয়ব হোক, যে এখানে শুধু হবে যে প্রকৃতির যে বিষয়টা আছে, গাছপালা আঁকেন স্যার, কোনো অসুবিধা নাই, সেটা আপনি আমাদের বর্ণমালা নিয়ে করতে পারেন। এভাবে আমাদের কাজটা শুরু হলো।
So okay, I can just translate, and Wafiq Bhai can also help me if I get anything wrong. Since 2010, Wafiq Bhai has been working on these architecture projects for CODEC on different part of the country for children, child-friendly spaces and different things. So Dulu Bhai had been following his work as well, as Wafiq Bhai is an architect, and he also was trying to find what can make it more successful, and what can be the colors, or what can be the essence of the structure. So it was not actually, as I understand, is that it was not actually achieved in a day or in the first few projects. It was actually gradual development, a process through different projects. So firstly, I think Wafiq Bhai and Dulu Bhai were involved in many projects that used just some vibrant colors and just some simple shades and simple structures. And gradually, when they could get chance, they tried to involve with the communities, with the children, and with the local people to have these beautiful patterns or beautiful artworks more into the structure. So many things were considered while he was painting these beautiful artworks. It was like, since the community is a bit conservative, they're a Muslim community, and they cannot draw any figurative drawings. They cannot have any animals or any faces. So they suggested these flowers or these abstract ideas of paintings, and even the children suggested some alphabets to be written on the walls, and he just painted it on, and children could easily read them and connect to them. So I believe it's more like an organic one, like you work with the children and it comes out in the mind, and you just go along with the flow, right? So it's more like that, I think. And then the Luhai. দিলু ভাই, হ্যাঁ, এরপরে যেটা বলতেছিলাম,
রিজভি প্লিজ अगेन।
হ্যাঁ, এরপরে যেটা বলতেছিলাম,
সমস্যা হচ্ছে। জি
দুলু ভাই আরো রিজভি, হ্যাঁ দুলু ভাই কি আরো কিছু অ্যাড করবেন তাহলে প্লিজ হিয়ার ইউ। I think he is having some problem with the internet. And now you can hear us. দুলু ভাই শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
দেন তারপরে এটা করার পরে মানে জিনিসটা তো, হ্যালো,
হ্যাঁ 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 শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
শোনা যাচ্ছে না? হ্যালো,
শুনতে পাচ্ছি আমরা।
নিষেধ,
আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি তো, we can hear you, আমরা শুনতে পাচ্ছি।
ওকে, এটা করার পরে তো বেশ ওই জায়গাটায় যারা আছে তাদের তো একটা সে থাকেই, এবং এই শিশুদের যে আগ্রহটা, যে তারা তো মানে একটা খুব চ্যালেঞ্জের মধ্য দিয়ে এই দেশে আসা, এবং এখানে এসে তারা এই কালার গুলো দেখে তাদের ভিতরে যে কি বলবো একটা প্রাণ একটা খুঁজে পেয়েছে, যেমন একটা রঙের মধ্যে তারা আছে, কারণ রঙও তো একটা প্রাণ দিচ্ছে। আমি রংটা দেখলে আমার কাছে কেমন মনে হয়, তাদের যে আসার পরে যে খুব হাসি, তারপরে তারা কিন্তু সেন্টারে আসা তাদের একটা অভিগম্যতা তৈরি হয়ে গেল, যে সেন্টারের প্রতি তাদের একটা রেসপেক্ট তৈরি হলো, এবং প্রতিদিন এরা দল বেঁধে আসতেছে, এখানে আসছে তারা নিজেরা তাদের ছবি, এবং কোথাও শিশুরা যেখানে ইনভলভ ছিল যে ছবি আঁকা, তারা একটা রং একটা ফোটা হলো তারা দিয়েছে, তারা খুশি যে এই ছবির এই জায়গায় আমার এতটুকু অংশীদার আছে। এই যে পার্টিসিপেশন যে কথাটা বললাম, যে সবার অংশগ্রহণটা ছিল, এটাই। Rizvi, please.
Yes. So yeah, I think that is the most important thing Dulu Bhai just explained, that these children had gone through like traumas we cannot imagine, and they came to this country, and there had to be something that builds some trust in them, or give them some faith, or stress relieving ideas in a very short time. And I think the artworks of Dulu Bhai is the tool to connect to them instantly, because we have been working in this camp for 2 years, and these artworks are some kind of landmarks. We feel like, okay, we used to point out, okay, that learning center, the artwork, that wall, yeah. So these instantly become a connecting tool, or a thing that gives them some hope or trust, that they can trust us or rely on us. So and these artworks were actually, when Dulu Bhai generated this, all the children were excited to put at least a little bit portion by themselves, that like they want to paint a little flower or something, so that they can continuously say that yes, that part is done by me, or the whole artwork I worked in the team. And that I think that made these learning centers successful. And so far as I have seen, these learning centers are brilliant. They have been running so good, as people can, because in the camp there are so many learning centers or so many like structures, and it's easy to get confused what is our focus and what to do. I think it's important to create something that excites the children to come to learn, because there are a lot of other things, like they go for like getting these and that from different organizations. Maybe instead of learning, they could easily get distracted. But the point Dulubhai and Wafiq Bhai is making here is that they should feel excited to learn in a beautiful environment, because camp is a very brutal environment, or brutal place to live in. And at least Dulubhai's painting makes some children smile or laugh, I think. Okay, if
Thank
anyone has any observations.
No, okay.
Okay. Okay, Bensa or Suzanne, if you'd like to say something, or Shigustapu.
May I take the question? No.
If you have,
yeah.
If you have anything to add to or comment on Wafiq Bhai and Dulubhai's work, and
so
how
it's
do you see this?
Firstly, very nice presentation, Wafiq, and also it's very good to hear about the artwork from Dulubhai. I already had a question for Dulubhai, but I think he kind of already covered it. I was thinking how kind of the arts in Rohingya culture did it impacted your thinking, or how the arts are impacted by the arts maybe the Rohingyas practice in their place. But I think a lot of the things he answered, like non-figurative thing, and also like through the child's participation. So if we can reflect on that a little bit. And one question to Wafiq is, since he talked also a lot about the space constraint, and it's really something we are facing a lot. And also from the planning perspective, when we try to replan, there's need for new infrastructures and a lot of other, like also there's natural hazard, problematic areas, there's structures as well. So he designed two things. One is child-friendly space, and I know that it's kind of different structures, child-friendly space and learning center. One is under protection and one is under education sector. So from the architecture perspective, can these be merged into one facilities, or can this be like one learning center or child-friendly spaces? Can this be like serve to these multiple activities? And if so, then can we, because now in the camp, the number of learning centers and number of CFS, it seems like we always consider the full coverage for learning center as well and child-friendly spaces. And then if you think about the presence of children in two places, sometimes it's a little bit problematic to think that the whole population will be in two different facilities at a time. So my question is basically, is it possible to have used the same facility for these two different purposes so that we can kind of deal with the space constraint? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shegufta, for, I think this is a very, the question that is actually many people's mind, that why we are not taking these two kind of structures and make it as a one structure, which will be the place for children to have both education and protection services. As an architectural point of view, or as a rational point of view, I think that there is no constraint in doing that. But there is still some coordination that is needed between the protection program and the education program, which is not directly under architects or the implementation organizations in the sphere of influence. You know, the protection program and the education program, the nature of their working, they have coordination among them, but still there are, for being two separate programs, I think there is lots of need of, first there will be the need of getting this integrated kind of program where there will be both education and child protection at the same time. But if you look at the user groups and the age of children who comes at the CFS, actually in the CFS context, there is no age restrictions. If you are children, according to UN convention, you can come to the child-friendly space. And in the education program, there is this kind of, like, it is ability-based learning program, but there is the first level starts at the age of 4 to 6. That is the early education, and afterwards that is the non-formal education. So I think in before going to architectural intervention, there is this need of discussion between protection and education program, and try to like develop a program which is more coordinated and which involves all the age groups of children and provides the basic functions, that is CFS and learning centers now providing separately. But they can be, because in learning center there is this part where they give psychological support, and also in the CFS there is this part where they provide non-formal education along with psychological support. So they are actually doing, in a way, sometimes they have common grounds, but as the nature of the program is different. So the first need is to be to have a coordinated approach and maybe a combined approach towards education and protection, and then we can easily make this more resourceful, make the spaces more usable by converting each CFS into both CFS and learning center, and also the learning centers in CFSs. So there will be more spaces for children to have both protection and education at the same. But yeah, I think that is my point of view. And also the cultural thing, I think Dulubhai already answered. And if anything else, Shevgufta, you want to add with that, or anybody? I think Benz, Susan, and you and Juto, you can also come into the conversation if you want. So yeah.
Thank you, Wafiq.
Please, Rizvi, please. কালচারাল যে বিষয়টা আছে, আমি একটু অ্যাড করতে চাচ্ছি যে বিষয়টা এর আগেও বলেছে যে ওরা খুব এক্সট্রিম, কিন্তু যে কারণে আমাদেরকে এনিমেলে কোনো ছবি নেই। কিন্তু একটা জিনিস মনে রাখতে হবে, ওদের যে পোশাক আছে, আমি প্রথম যখন নিশি যখন বললো যে দুধুভাই কাজটা করতে হবে, কিন্তু এই ভাবনাটা মাঠে গিয়ে হলো আমি 2টা কাপড় কিনি তাদের যে থামিটা আছে, থামিতে কিন্তু প্রচুর ওদের কিন্তু অলঙ্করণ আছে। ও 2টা থামি কেনার পরে ওটা আমি মানে নিজে কিনে দেখার পরে দেখলাম যে ওদের কালার গুলো কি কি আছে, সেই কালারটা দেওয়ার চেষ্টা করেছে, কারণ তারাও তো ভাবতেছে যে আমার থামির কালারটাও কিন্তু এখানে এটা হতে পারে। ওকে, সরি রিজভি।
Yeah, so it is true that this community is a bit conservative, and their religion probably guides them so, but actually they are in nature very attracted to floral patterns and colorful patterns as well, especially if you look at their clothes of little girls and little children, of their traditional clothes or cultural clothes. That Dulubhai picked 2 clothes as a reference of how they are actually they like to see their patterns, or they use patterns or in their tradition. So these are very decorative and very beautiful indeed, and I have seen them working in stitches and clothes and making patterns. They're actually very beautiful, and they're really unique. So yeah, I think Dulubhai had this idea or this notion of picking these patterns or from their clothes that can be translated into the artwork. Yeah. So Ben's or Suzanne, yeah.
Yeah, I was because yeah, thank you first of all for this presentation. It was I have much more insight now what's going on in your work. What I was interested in as a basic information, before these children-friendly spaces were built up, was there kind of an obligation for the kids to have any education, or were they built up and they say now they are forced or should go there, or was it a free choice? And my main question, was it easy that the kids really came, or maybe parents let them come? Because you also said they're often traumatized, it was difficult to build trust, and I think here in Zurich we doesn't live or work in such an extreme situation. But in a way we also have this basic question, how we can get to some of the people who are not really trusting our society, and or just don't have the knowledge or don't know this kind of institution, whatever. So how did it start? Because on all your pictures it looked really filled up and joyful, but was it that easy, or this was also a slow process to build up this trust to the kids?
It was not an immediate response of the community to send their children, actually, because in the start of 2017, I think our project coordinator will also, Tawaruk, will also add after me. He has raised his hand. So yeah, it was not a very easy way, but in refugee context, the United Nations have this kind of set programs of protection and education, where there is this child-friendly spaces and learning centers. So this is not something that came from the need of the community, I must say, at first, but this was like the set programs from United Nations, and it was upon to us, like the implementation organizations and also the UN partners, to try to have this dialogue with the community and try to understand what is going on with them, and also try to, the Rohingya population, their nationality were cancelled in 1960s. So after 1960, no Rohingya children were getting the access to go to school, or many many social services, they didn't have any access from after the 60s. Before the 60s, they even have representation in the parliament, Rohingya people, but after 60s, when their nationalities were being cancelled, they didn't have any kind of access to this kind of services. So when the children came to Bangladesh after like this terrible situation that happened in Myanmar, obviously there were issues of trust, that are we going to send our children? We don't know about the Bangladesh. And also when they were, I must say, when they were coming into Bangladesh, there were some percentage of Bangladeshi people who were also involved with different kinds of, I can say, like wrong things to do with the community. I am not saying everyone, but there is always some people everywhere who tries to take advantage of bad situations of people. So that also created some level of mistrust at first. But our focus of the work and all the partners' focus of the work from the start in the camps were to involve the community in all kinds of work that we do. So gradually the community came to know about the program and what we are actually offering to the children in the CFS, what we are offering the children to the learning centers. And if you see that in the primary designs of both of our learning center and CFS, that in my part, I tried to make it as open as possible. It was maybe creating some problem climatically, but the openness actually showed the people around the centers that what is actually going on inside those structures. So that gave lots of advantage, and people saw what is going on inside, and then they gradually, it is not an immediate like way. Gradually they came to know, and I think it took around 6 to 8 months primarily to know and to mobilize the community, primarily to send their children in this kind of protective spaces. And now I think we have earned the trust and also the respect of the community, most of the part of the community in the Rohingya camps. I'm not saying all, to be honest, most of the people who actually care for their children and understand that this education is important, no matter what the state they are in, because even if our government's policy is repatriation, that one day we think that all of people will go back to Myanmar. And we think, and also the community thinks, that if they learn something, if they have some kind of skills, they can also use it here. And when they go back to their country, they can also use it. So yeah, that is from my part. I think Tabarruk, he can also answer better than me, because he is working directly in the camps every day, each and every day. So Tabarruk, maybe you can add something to, you wanted to add. So Tabarruk, now I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Wafiq Bhai. I think most of the part you and our Dulu Bhai have covered. I just added 2 or 3 points. For that is why I need 3 to 5 minutes. So if you allow, then I can say.
Yes, please.
Sure. I think
Okay.
we also want to see you. If you have no problem, you can maybe show your face so people can see. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
thank you.
That's okay.
Okay. First of all, I want to add 2 or 3 points. Number one is regarding child protection. So, though Wafiq Bhai have mentioned that we have established child-friendly spaces in here, but at present we are calling it as MPCs. I mean to say multi-purpose center. So, in the multi-purpose center, what we are doing? We are providing psychosocial support for the children, number one. Number two, we are providing life skill session for the adolescents who are the age of 12 to below 18. Beside life skill session, the adolescents are getting livelihood training in there. And for the vulnerable children, we are providing special individual services through our case management services. Number four, we are engaging the community people around our multipurpose center for developing their capacity on positive parenting and how to behave with children, for creating a child-protected environment in the camp. So these 4 main work is happening in the multipurpose center. So at the beginning of the influx in Rohingya responses, we are seeing, at already Wafiq Bhai have mentioned there, that 55% of the Rohingya people belong to the children. That is near about 7 million. So first of all, as a programmatic aspect and worldwide, it is granted that child protection must be ensured for all the children. So for ensuring the child protection, we have established, that Wafiq Bhai said, eco-friendly, widespread center in there, and by the MPCs. Now, if I provide you one example, that at present we are using also the MPC as a lost child caregiver meeting point, that is called LCCMP. As you know that it is mostly dense area. Children have not enough spaces to play, who is struggling their mental development. And for that is why for ensuring and for mental development of the children, though we are encouraging children to go to the learning center, but the children have spending 3 to 4 hours maximum in the learning center. The rest of the time they have no specific work to do, and for that is why they can spend a creative time in the MPCs. We are designing our program in there. So the main purpose of the MPC is to create a child-protected environment in the camps. As a result, the children will automatically go to the learning centers. And in the LCCMPs, as you know, lost child tendency is very much higher in the camp. Whenever, as you know, we have some community volunteers in different blocks of the camps. So whenever a child is found without his parents, then the community people send the children to our MPCs, and in there the children have spent 3 to 4 hour time in these charming places, and by these times we are finding the parents of the children, and as a result the MPCs is very much creating a positive environment in the camp. So this point that I want to add. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Taurog Bhai. Yeah, so I want to add to Susan's question. Sometimes the organizations actually, in the initial stages, they actually try to set this template or ideas or sectors that yes, education needs to be served for a lot of people or the whole community, and we need to build like these learning centers and CFSs without even having these FGDs or collecting the information from the community. But I think as CODEC is the partner organizations and Dulu Bhai and Wafiq Bhai has played that role to make it contextualized, because as we have been working here, it often has been observed that the tendency is to make a template drawing or design of any center and make it like hundreds of them, even if it's not, even it's up on the hill or it's in a flatland, or even if it's in the host community or in the refugee community. But it has been a struggle to make them understand that individual centers need to be individual design, or like at least we need to have some consideration that can be adjusted into the design. That's where I think Wafiq Bhai and Dulu Bhai has been working in details and with all these unique patterns, all these unique artworks and forms of the building. I think they have been adding value to this program. Of course, education is necessary, and whenever we speak to all the refugee communities or the Rohingya people, the first thing the elderly say that they need education for their children, because institutional education is not really still available for them. They cannot really do the curriculum that is provided by the government, but they can learn from the learning centers, and they always know or understand that this is important. Whenever we go to the community or we sit with the especially the key leaders of the community, they come up with these ideas that they need schools or they need these universities or whatever that they can that can offer something to their children, because they don't see any future of their children. They want to see something that they are being offered to. Yes, of course, they have been going through a lot of trauma, but I think it also made them like forcefully cope with that new environment. Like, we have to do something very quickly so that we don't fall behind or we don't lag behind. Yes, there has been a lot of damage, but we cannot afford more. So they are very open to education. They love to children love to come to the learning centers, as I have seen, and they love to play here. They love to get engaged with the foreigners, with the Bangladeshi people, and they love to communicate right now. So at the beginning, probably it was not very easy, but this contextualization and Wafiq Bhai, Tabarok Bhai, the people who have been working in the field, they communicated, and that played the vital role, I think.
Thank you a lot. Yeah, no, it was because yeah, for us we work in a totally different context, but I think in the end we have quite similar questions.
Yes.
How to connect to the people, whatever age they have. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Ben said. Are you there?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the presentation and for this whole mind-opening work you are doing. I think there is no more need for really talking about the needs or how you work, kind of. I think the big question is how can we work together on a global scale or support your work on through this global network we are trying to develop, and how can you implement it on the local scale? So is there enough money? Is there enough centers? Is there any need for more things to do? What are the resources you have with people, or what are the missing things, if there is any? And how can we? Yeah, the next question is how can we do that? But I think the first question, if there is any need or how do you see, or like for example, the UNICEF is giving enough support, or these big organizations are actually doing their great work, and is it like enough, or we also would need a kind of an independent funding from all these things?
Maybe I can start, and I would like to request all the others who are working in the camp context to add with me, because I think it's a very very big question to answer. But
Yes.
in my limited experience, I think the first need at this moment in the camps is we need to think very deeply about the adolescent and teenager age group in the camp areas, because we have programs, protection programs for children, which is supposed to also cover adolescents, and we have education programs for children. And there is many attempts by many different organizations to involve the adolescent and the teenagers, boys and girls, into mixed groups or separate groups programs. But sadly, in the last 3 years, no specific program or activities were very successful regarding incorporating the teenagers and adolescents in the camp environment to do different kind of skill development or life skill development works. And that creates a social problem, because I think around 15 to 20%, or I think now it's around 20%, are adolescents and teenagers in the camp. So a huge population of the camp actually doesn't have anything to do after a certain period of time, and that creates the problem with many kinds of social problems. And there is a huge drug trade that is going on inside the camp from Myanmar to Bangladesh, which is also an issue that I must say here. Drugs is a huge issue, drug which is produced in Myanmar and has a very big market in Bangladesh. And often these people who live in the border areas, they use these teenagers or adolescents people to do this kind of things. And also there is now recently, or also it has been growing, some extremist groups inside the camps, which has recently there have been clashes also with the host community. So when you see these kind of groups being generated in the camp, you can easily, I think, in my analysis, it is that the huge population of adolescent and teenagers, which we couldn't involve in any kind of our programs effectively, is creating this thing that maybe we should actually, we have to look more into. And I think about the resources, still in the context of Bangladesh, the huge amount of resources are invested in the Rohingya refugee context. I must say that, because there is also need for development works in the other parts of Bangladesh. Bangladesh, as I said before, Bangladesh is a country which is affected mostly hugely by climate change, and there is this changing life pattern, changing cropping pattern, and many, I think the more than 50% of the whole people of 160 million people of Bangladesh, they are affected, and many people are still living under the poverty line. So there is the need of also development projects in other parts of Bangladesh, but we are even seeing that the projects are getting closed in other parts of Bangladesh and being introduced in the refugee areas, because they need. So that is also a thing. So I think about the money or the resource thing, there is still now adequate funding, but in the programming way of thinking, for me, I think we must think about the teenagers and the adolescents, because they are the population who are going to be adults very soon. And if there is problem there, then we, as a security concern and also social concern, Bangladesh might face severe problems in the future. I think people can also add with me, somebody else. Thank you.
Yes, I think that this issue, this whole scenario is not going to end very soon, but the funding will reduce, that's for sure. What will be the behavior in the future, and what will be the psychology in the future? What will be the relationship between the host community and the refugee community? I think that will be the main thing to deal with or to work with. And what we can do, so we can keep working, we can keep spreading these messages, and we can inspire people to do research and parallelly implement and work here, not just whimsical work, or not just attempt to prove something, but to really like rendering a whole picture. You work in the camp, like in a large scale, or in smaller scales, in different scales actually. So I don't know, it would really be nice if we could like globally have something that can continuously takes all the informations and distributes to people, so that people can work and help them to work here, and in other like close by host communities too. So it's all about these issues, how you deal with it, because as Wafiq says, right now probably the funding is adequate, and many Bangladeshi people even complains why the UN is giving so much to refugees, not them. That is another issue and another conflict, but that also has to be balanced and to be considered. And students, professionals can actually come here and try to I don't know, contribute or research more, but often researchers do the research and it's actually gone from the main from the real field. That's another problem, to work from different from distant part of the world. So I don't know if you have anything in mind to start with, then say you can suggest, and we can always.
Rizvi, if I can add to you and Wafiq a bit on this.
Yes.
One thing is, I think knowledge building is also a bit necessary, because if you look at kind of the global standards and global kind of guidance that we have for planning or designing like in context of refugee, it's very broad and oftentimes not very contextual. So one thing is to how we can kind of bring the global, let's say, global design standard of the designs and planning in the context, and maybe we can look into different examples, and Bangladesh can be one, and Bangladesh is like the context is hugely complex, and starting from the topography, density, and all of these things, and all the, you know, even if you do like a learning center or shelter or different kind of things, there's like sphere standards and other master planning standards, and then when you go to the field, there's really, the reality is so different, and how these things are translated in our context. I think that there can be like documents that kind of integrates the knowledge that people are working, maybe, but there's no like documents that someone can read and like see that this is how it's done here. And also another thing, I think on the budget and focusing, I think one of the problems that happened in the camp as well, to have like a lot of funds in short time. So people really like, a lot of things happened in an uncoordinated way, let's say, and the quality as well, it's not same for, like, there are lots of NGOs that work. Maybe here we are, if we talk about BRAC, CODEC, these are like good examples, and then there are structures, but that's really not up to the mark. And then if we think of the budget will shrink, and then how this architecture and how this other design, or even if I say planning, how it responds to the transition to a post-crisis situation. So there will be less of funding, so you have to manage all the things in less funding. And now, if we even look at the camps, if we look at how many schools are there, I think it's 4,000 school structures, if I say. So in a shrinking budget, how would you, because sometimes it's just a small room, so how would you kind of, in a less budget, how would you manage this thing? So it's also, we could look into, I mean, there's a lot of scope of research. I mean, like there's a lot of gaps. So how these structures will respond to the future, let's say, when the emergency is over. And I think it's kind of maybe a little bit of common scenario, the approach of humanitarian and development. So even in Bangladeshi context, if you think of Bihari, like the camp, Geneva camp that has been in Mohammadpur, if you even look in the Google map, it doesn't, like, it's so different from the surrounding area. So now it's part of, it's no more a camp, but the imprints, it's never, it does not integrate to the city. So how, in this situation, when the response is already from 2017 and now it came into 20, these things in more sustainable scope of research and also gathering of the documentation and comparing it with the other countries. Let's say comparing the other camps that we have, maybe in Zatari or in other places. So yeah, I think it's also interesting to see, like, pick a topic and to see how, like, compare different examples and different contexts. Yeah. Thank you. Over to you, Rizvi.
Thanks a lot, everybody. I think we should close sooner than later this discussion for today, but I would even like summarize this whole meeting and this whole process we are trying to do with you in this international context, that yeah, there is a lot to learn from each other, and I think there is a lot to support each other and work together on a global scale. And as through this COVID-19 now, I think really being connected on an offline, on a physical way, it makes it even complicated, more complicated. And as you mentioned, some of the centers are kind of closed now, but I think we should really focus a little bit on this online exchange, maybe, and you can then implement it on site. But having more of these meetings, or I would even say like public discussions and public exchange and developments and involvement of international partners, guests, I think it would be an amazing way of moving on with this collaboration. Every small step brings something, I'm quite sure. So we just met, I think, a few months ago, and we really had this corona in the meantime, so we were really kind of lost in this huge mess. But maybe we are kind of slowly but getting back to somehow this normal. So I would say let's really keep in touch and really try to make the next steps. We already have some ideas in mind for the next year, how to bring this discussion onto an international level. But in the meantime, I would suggest to have our meetings really public. So even if it's like first, the next meeting with 20 people, 10 people, and then 50 and some, I don't know, it could really bring a difference. There is a lot of schools, universities, international partners who would be interested in to join you or to support you. Of course, in the beginning, we also have to build trust with these new partners. But yes, through your work, I think it's not really complicated. We just have to make it happen, and we just have to be like there and continuously keep working together. There is a lot to do, as I see. So we have to use our resources as good as we can. We don't have to have like 100 meetings a week or a month. But yeah, let's really try to make the best out of every meeting. And I think one way is to make it public, and the other way is to share every meeting, every work in our networks to make it visible.
I think
yeah,
we can make it easier and think simpler ideas like having a workshop one day online, maybe sketching some ideas or sharing some technical ideas. And step by step, we can move forward. And if we have a chance to collaborate in something big or something that can actually affect or help people, it's definitely gonna be a good thing. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna have something simpler and effective soon. Thank you, everyone. I think we can close today. It has been a lovely discussion, and thank you, Wafiq Bhai and Tulu Bhai, especially for sharing their lovely works. I think Wafiq Bhai has been working in different projects and a lot of things going on with his organizations. He can even help further to make us understand how we can actually collaborate and give our skills to offer our skills. So yeah, next I would really love to see some works of Shegufta Apu and Bense. Please do share what you have been doing during this time, and so that we can learn your perspectives or your works as well. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining.
Can I add
yes.
just one
yes,
minute?
Yes, yes.
I think
yes.
When we are talking about refugees, this is Architecture for Refugees Network. I think we should also include the climate refugees in Bangladesh in the discussion, because somehow maybe we forget them, but there is a huge population of climate migrants or climate refugees in Bangladesh who have to leave their livelihood, their homes for raise of sea level or salinity intrusion, and they are coming into the big cities, living in slums or just going into subhuman spaces they are living. So maybe in our discussion we will focus in Rohingya refugees and also the climate migrants in Bangladesh. Maybe that can also add a different perspective and more relevant discussion too with the so yeah. Thank you.
That will be actually lovely, and we can start with like mapping whatever we know. We can take a map and start pointing out where these locations can be especially focused. We can focus on these migrants, and then we can have like a bigger scenario to look at and maybe understand the complexity a bit in depth. So yeah, I think that will be really another level of work, beautiful work. So okay, if nobody has, if anyone has anything to add, I'd request to add finally, and then we can close. Otherwise.
Oh, I just say, sorry, I just wanted to say that thank you for nice. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the nice presentation. I think this global issue is quite difficult to find the solution immediately, because it's so complicated. As you said, there are different kinds of immigrations, the immigrants and the refugees in different backgrounds. But as long as I saw the kids on the presentation, they smile and they look happy. And the sentence on the presentation, what really impressed by was memories to create. So they all need, the better memories to create together and feel at home. I mean, they lost their home, and then they try to create new home with the community. Not only the refugees in between, but the local community. And that's one of the most important goal to help or to do together, I guess. There are many technical problems or technical issues or political issues, but I think it's the part of our aim to achieve. So yeah, I mean, generally I was very impressed with this presentation, and really nice to get to know what happened in Bangladesh, because I come from Japan, and we have some Rohingya refugees there, or different refugees, but we can't really, or Japanese government really don't react for them. So I'm just, glad to be part of kind of action in Switzerland, and yeah, very glad to meet you all, and yeah, we keep going, forward. Yeah. Sorry for the really end. I was just a bit, yeah. I was a bit tired today. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, I agree with you that children smile, and these beautiful paintings are making them smile. So I think there is a lot of events going on in this humanitarian context, in refugee context, or in other parts of the country, and a lot of investments are there. So I think our responsibility is to make sure that these events are turning into a right event, a beautiful event, a joyful event, rather than just an event or just a construction or just something happening. It can become something joyful, and collectively it will actually take care of the mental health, of the psychology, and of everyone, of the children, of the society, and all. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Benz, for also initiating the meetups, and we are looking forward to have more in future.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone. And Wafiq, this was really your initiative now to represent. I'm happy to take the next one in a few days, few weeks.
Yeah,
yeah, sure. Keep in touch. We have this WhatsApp group. If someone wants to join, let us know. And yeah, see you soon, hopefully. And keep up.
Stay safe. Stay safe, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.